Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Wack. Today is September 16th, and today's episode is going to cover some ideas about making Rocket Pool more competitive with Lido CSM. We're going to be talking about meetups in the Rocket Pool community. On the Ethereum side, we're also going to be talking about the anniversary of the merge, second anniversary. We're going to be talking about ETH BTC ratio hitting cycle lows. And on top of that, we're going to be talking about the Pectra hard fork, some more details around that. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
So before I begin, I want to give a special shout out to a member of the Rocket Fuel community who was extremely kind and sent me a new microphone and recording kit for Rocket Fuel. I'm truly honestly blown away by the generosity of this person. It was actually astonishing. For a minute I thought it was a scam, I'll be honest, but I have a new audio set up today for today's episode and all the episodes going forward. So let me know what you think of today's episode. Let me know what you think of the audio quality. Let me know if you think the audio quality is improved or not improved, or if there's still, if you think that it's not loud enough, or any adjustments I need to make. And I'll be playing around with my new audio setup like a bunch over the next few days, and hopefully, within a couple of days we'll hit a really good place where the audio is consistently really good. But okay, with the audio now, let's start with the actual Rocket Pool news. And the first is this piece of information that Samus put out a couple of days ago, and here he is talking about comparisons between CSM and Rocket Pool and what we can do. So he says, put together a comparison if anyone wanted to copy and play with it for themselves. Lido using CSM for their bond actually makes Rocket Pool more competitive at most node operator commissions. If we lowered our reduced bond to match CSM, we actually would have a higher yield at the same 6% node operator commission, 6% node operator share commission. And then he says, see the alt tab. So actually, let's go and have a look at this table that he put together and see what's going on. So here, Samus put forward a bunch of values. The first one is Rocket Pool Saturn 1 with a 4 ETH bond, and at 5% node operator commission, it's getting around 1.35 times solo staker rewards. Then with Saturn 2, that's 1.5 ETH node operator bonds. Then he says Rocket Pool compared to solo staking, and that comes at 5% node operator commission, it comes through at around 2 times solo staking. And then if we move that up to 6.5%, we can actually get up to 2.32 times solo staking. And then with Lido CSM, of course, they're offering 6% commission on their 1.3 ETH bonds, and that is coming to 2.377 times solo staking. So if we change our values a little bit, we can actually get to the point where we're almost like competitive, but if not more competitive than Lido CSM. And then there's some alt, like that was the expected values. And then with the alt bond here, he shows that with Saturn 1, we go in at the 4 ETH, that's the same. Then with Saturn 2, what Rocket Pool could do is actually go in at 1.3 ETH instead of the 1.5 ETH. And the difference would actually be huge. Whereas, what would happen is with the 5% node operator commission, we would actually be giving node operators 2.18 times solo staking rewards, and matching Lido at 6% would actually be giving 2.417 times solo staking rewards. So what Samus here is saying is that with a small tweak of numbers, we could get to the point where we are performing very strongly against Lido, and that is of course because of those bond types that we could have, and the kind of commission that we can give. Now, one thing that we should be made aware of is the Saturn 2 is potentially a long way away. Now Saturn 1 is, we keep saying 6 to 9 months, but I've been joking recently that the 6 to 9 months time frame doesn't change. However, words are coming out of the team, like with Langers, they're saying that Saturn is progressing quite well so far. So this is hopefully the case that we'll get it in Q1 or Q2 of 2025, and then Saturn 2, I think the best case scenario would be Q4 of 25, but maybe even Q1 of 26. Now, that gives Lido a big head start in terms of getting those node operators right. But the good thing is, of course, that, Rocket Pool hopefully will be able to be more profitable eventually, or almost as profitable. But of course, the big thing is that Rocket Pool offers those aspects of decentralization, trustlessness, permissionlessness, all that really good stuff across the whole protocol. Samus had a couple of actually really good ideas. Like, so if you go back to the discussion in trading, you'll see that he was saying because you have to use STETH as your bond, then that makes it a little bit less competitive. And he also went on to say that with Lido, there's he says that let me see actually sorry yeah, he says that there's a ceiling on the number of people who could actually steal, and that's more in favor of Rocket Pool. But so it was actually Halulo, sorry, who said that with Lido, he says that because you're using STETH as your bond, it means the modules aren't isolated. That means if there's something that happens with he says, look, for example, if you as a supposed solo staker can lose money if the permissioned ones mess up, I know the probability is low, but it still feels icky. So what he's saying is that if one of the Lido node operators, or a few of them, do something really bad and they get slashed for a lot of ETH, you actually, as a STETH holder, will lose rewards in that as well. So there's some issues there with Lido that is unlikely to happen, but it would be really bad if it did happen. And then the other issue with Lido, of course, is that you have to use STETH as your bond, which means in certain jurisdictions that's a taxable event to swap from ETH to STETH. So that might also be a limiting factor for people to become Lido node operators because they don't want to incur that taxable event. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Okay, we got this post from Ramana a couple of days ago. And for those of you who've been watching along with Rocket Fuel, you'll know that Ramana has been slowly getting more dissatisfied with like the work that he's been doing, and like some of it not being, I guess, not getting enough community help, not with the GMC and others not helping early enough, and just this like sense of dissatisfaction that's kind of been creeping into his tone and his presentation, the way he presents himself. I mean, so over the weekend he actually put out this post that a lot of people found quite upsetting in the sense that they don't want Ramana to be having this tough time. But he says, "Hi everyone, I've been doing some reflecting on my life and came to some decisions around my involvement with this community that I wanted to share." He says, "I'm grateful for all the support I've received on various forms and relationships I've been looking to be part of here, but the level of support is too inconsistent for me at the moment, and the falling price doesn't help. I've decided to limit my exposure, reducing to at most 30 minutes a day in trading and no other engagements except for the following." He says, "I will still be fully online in the Varun and Rocketland Discord." He says, "I will still aim to deliver on those grants and bounties as well as the rocket theft grant." He says, "I will still perform all my duties as a voting delegate. I will still maintain LSD price, blockies, rocket slippage, rocket hero, rocket rebate, rocket voting, and rocket delegate." He says, "I'll still update the all-time low. In principle, I'm also still doing rocket perf and rocket front and Ethereum, but they're very slow going." He says, "If you want to reach out to me and work on something together, I suggest starting at the Varun and Rocketland Discord." So like I said, this is quite upsetting. Yeah, Ramana is one of the core members of our community, and he's taking like a small step back, and that is a real shame that that's happening right now. I don't want to, speculate on this more than what Ramana has written. So if you want to talk to Ramana, you're welcome to reach out to them using, you can message them directly, or you can message them on the Discord for Varun / Rocketland. So that was just something that I was really upset about, and it's a real shame that it's reached this point. But I hope things for Ramana get better soon. Okay, next we got news from Patches, who is on the European tour right now. So he is visiting Germany and Austria, And here Patches shared a photograph of him and Buddha. And Buddha, of course, is of the Beacon Chain website. That's where you know him from, and the fact that he's an ODAO member. But they met at Buddha's place in Austria. I don't want to say too much more, but it's really cool that there's a little mini rocket pool meetup happening in Germany, in Austria right now, and Germany as well. I think Patches was in and out of Germany over the last couple of days. So if you are in that part of the world and if you would like to meet up with Patches, I think he would be more than happy for you to take him for a drink. But otherwise, I'm happy that this is happening. The caption from Patch is really funny. He says, "Me with Butter and Invis," and Invis of course works with Butter at Beacon Chain, but he's currently traveling, so he wasn't there to meet up with Patches. But we have to believe that he's a real person, but apparently he's on a different continent right now, which might or might not be Asia, and might or might not be in Japan. Okay, my browser's being dumb. Okay, here we go. Moving on to some staking news now. So we actually have some interesting news coming out of NodeSet here, and NodeSet actually presented this idea of an LRT. So here Mig actually asked the question. He says, "Nick, it could be interesting to see if Gravitar wants to be a mellow symbiotic curator AVS. There is an RETH vault in Symbiotic that have none for now and could leverage their point system to have some sort of LRT that could open the doors for Pendle, etc." So then Nick responded by saying that I would say that it's no, sorry, this one. He says, "Yeah, we will have to talk to all of those players. Stake-wise, BD, a lead who we know well, just moved to Symbiotic. So there might be some interesting play here about potential partnerships." But he says, "Keep your expectations in check. I don't know if they would ever want to empower Rocket Pool directly, lol." And of course, Symbiotic is a company based out of Paradigm, I think. Wait, no. It's the co-founders of Symbiotic are the same people who co-founded Lido. So that's why Nick is saying keep your expectations in check. But there might be some interesting synergies here. And then Maso replied by saying, "Yeah, but wild speculation is a lot more fun." He said, "Heard a rumor that Blackrock is going to be launching a staking ETF built on NodeSet. It could be interesting." So yeah, it's there's definitely some interesting stuff that's happening on the NodeSet side. And the really great thing is that NodeSet has the ability to kind of form these relationships and act and make partnerships in a way that Rocket Pool itself shouldn't ever. And I think kind of like with the Ethereum layer 1 and layer 2s that we have, there's a certain flexibility that comes with being on the layer 2, and part of that is due to the layer 2s being able to experiment in a way that layer 1s would take a really long time or a lot of effort to make it happen, and or really shouldn't happen. And I think that's going to be the similar case here with like NodeSet and Rocket Pool, where Rocket Pool, you kind of want it to stay unchanging as possible in some ways. I know that we've had a lot of changes coming up recently, and with more changes coming up over the next year or two. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, with these long telegraphed, like, community worked on changes like that are well telegraphed, and people really understand what's happening, I think that's much better for Rocket Pool itself. And then services like NodeSet or potentially others in the future who build on top of Rocket Pool, they then can do the job of changing like some parameters, or like making relationships with other projects, and kind of building those relationships to help grow everything. Now, if this kind of pool really did work, and NodeSet incentivized it in some ways, or like built relationships towards making that happen, then that would be a huge demand driver for RETH and also XRETH, as far as I understand it. So there's definitely some really interesting stuff going on there. Okay, let's move on to some Ethereum news now. And the Ethereum news from today is going to start with this post from Ryan Berkmans. And Ryan says, "Happy second 2-year anniversary of the merge. The best is yet to come." There was a whole lot of other people sending out similar sentiments. Like here, Liam said, "Happy merge anniversary to those who celebrate." So of course we celebrate. We were there at the merge. We were watching it live, taking part in our calls and like following along in our communities. And the merge, how could we forget it, right? Being in Ethereum, it was one of those monumental events that was years in the making, and now I can't actually believe it's been 2 years since it already happened. But Ethereum has been really interesting since the merge. So here, let's have a look at ultrasound money, and we say that supply chain since the merge is down. ETH is down 170,000 ETH, which is pretty cool. It was actually down at peak in terms of burn rate. It was down like 455,000 ETH, and that was just in April. But then since then, ETH's been inflating past, getting closer to those merge numbers, and some of the activities that have been happening like since the merge have been really interesting. Like if you look at the gas chart, you'll see that there were a few big spikes where gas was pretty high, like 2-3 big spikes, but for the most part, gas has been at or below the burn barrier, and then you can see which apps have been most activated in that time as well. So since the merge, you'll see that Uniswap has burned 131,000 ETH, just regular ETH transfers 116,000, Uniswap version 2 85,000, Uniswap 84,000. I think that, yeah, I'm interested in those numbers are the same. But then there's a whole lot, like Arbitrum's burned a lot, Circle's burned a lot, OpenSea, and a whole bunch of these apps have burned a whole lot of ETH. So yeah, Ethereum since the merge has been amazing. Like with the developments that have been happening have been excellent, and he is hoping that we get more years of really great development coming up ahead. Okay, so that was the good stuff. Now the bad stuff. Here we have news from Ben Cowan, who is taking a victory lap. And for those of you who don't know Ben Cowan, he is the host of Into the Cryptoverse, which is a YouTube like trading / price channel where he kind of compares Bitcoin, Ethereum, ETH, and BTC and other crypto assets on their price charts and sees what the price action is looking like. And one of Ben's famous comments was that ETH will be going down against BTC, and he was saying this in the period before the merge, and he was calling for a price target of ETH on the ratio with BTC between 0.03 and 0.04, and today, of course, that price target is hit. So if we have a look over here, ETH price it hit 2,300 on Binance, but it wicked down to around 2,250. And the main thing that everyone's looking at today is the ETH BTC ratio, and this went down to 0.0387. So this of course hit a new low. If we have a look at the weekly chart, you can see that like it's putting in new lows basically, and that didn't feel nice. So Ben Cowan in a sense is saying, hey, look, I told you so. I've been saying this for over 2 years that this was happening. But the interesting thing that he's saying is like he says it could be bottom as early as this week or as late as December. Based on prior capitulations, I think this will happen sooner rather than later. And he says I'll make a video about it tomorrow. So then he's showing his posts from 2023 saying ETH BTC is going to collapse, blah blah blah, and kind of pointing the arrow down to the kind of range that we're in now. And he's taking a victory lap now. I've been hate watching Ben Cowan for a couple of years, especially since the excitement of the merge. It was very much the case that hey, like Ethereum's changing, we've got ultrasound money now, we've got triple halving, like all of this kind of stuff. Those narratives that were around at the time, and sadly, they didn't factor into the price, and the price has been down against BTC in that time. Now you might be able to say, hey, this is the ETF, like nobody knew those were going to get approved, and the Bitcoin one's been doing really well, blah blah blah, but like for whatever reason, like you could say Ben Cowan like is just the astrology bro, crypto astrology bro. But the fact is like his prediction has come true, so he's going to take a victory lap right now, and I think for all of us we've just got to kind of endure it. However, there's some interesting things to look at here. So here, Hedgex says that the ETH BTC has only been in this oversold, this oversold 5 times in the history of Ethereum, and each time a much higher high followed. So if you look at the chart here, like in the oversold territory, again, this is technical analysis stuff, so showing like what the strength of the ETH is against BTC, and right now it's really weak. And what Hedgex is trying to say is that from this position. There's a chance that it's going to rally really strongly. And then there's more sentiment like this here. We're starting to see the people like Byzantine General saying that open interest on ETH is going nuts right now. So there's a whole lot of interest coming into ETH. And I don't know if that's to long it or short it, but there's definitely like action going on. Here, Drag is Jirag is saying that there's capitulation in the air. He says, I love the smell of capitulation in the morning. And this is a Reddit post from today saying, I've had some ETH for a few years now, but it's not a crazy amount, but it's enough that it's of value. He said, I've never really understood or been passionate about ETH like I am with Bitcoin. So up to now, I've just kept it in case it shoots up in value. Whereas with my BTC, I never plan to sell. And then the person goes on to say, my question for the ETH community is what would be the reasons for keeping it? I'm inclined to just buy more BTC with it and forget about ETH altogether, but if there's a compelling argument to keep it, then I'm open ears. Now, this kind of idea, this kind of sentiment has been growing recently, and this has like capitulation written all over it, where people are fumbling their ETH bags. And we know that like the number one rule of staying in crypto is don't fumble your bags, but it seems like that's happening, or it's getting close to happening. Now, Comfu.eth says, I've never been more bullish long term on ETH. This is a buying opportunity of a lifetime. And then Ethereum Maximus says, ETH BTC now oversold on the weekly RSI. This has only happened 3 times since 2019. He says, you have to ask yourself one very simple question. Should I be bearish on ETH here? Your choice will define you for a long time to come. Now, of course, the idea, right, is like if you fumble your bag here, what ETH has shown in the past is that, coming into this stage of the market, it outperforms Bitcoin. And even Ben Cowan, who's been so bearish on Bitcoin for so long, he was on Bankless last week saying that he thinks the bottom of this market is either in or it's very close to being in now. And he is going to be allocating a percentage of his portfolio to ETH going forward. Now, he hasn't made public that he's made that trade yet, but the numbers that he wanted to see hit now have hit. So I think it's just depends on how greedy he wants to be and waiting for that ratio to go lower, or he'll just buy now and take any potential losses in the short term. But he thinks that going into rate cuts this week that we're going to be talking about later, he thinks that the market's either going to respond to rate cuts this week in a way that we'll get the capitulation wick that we're waiting for, or we might get a slow bleed until the end of the year until we get some more rate cuts, and then that point ETH will form a bottom and start its bounce back and then run for a year basically ahead. So I'm waiting for that capitulation week as well. I've got some money set aside. Of course, this is not financial advice, trading advice, anything like that. This is just my own personal opinion, and I'm happy with my bags right now. So if I don't get a buying opportunity, that's absolutely fine. But I am looking to see the signs of total capitulation, and then I can move in with some of the cash that I have. But these are the scary times, right? Like this is, I think for me, it kind of feels like buying ETH in 2019 when prices were really low and people were really scared. And at that time as well, like even I balked, right? Like I couldn't bring myself to buy. And then I watched the price go up a lot more before I was able to buy. I missed out on some big gains potentially. Well, actually, but I think that buying at these kind of points is the scariest thing, and it takes nerves of steel to do it. So yeah, and finally here, just to see that last bit of sentiment that some people are waiting for here. Maple says it's simple. Just wait until someone throws a death of ETH party, then buy with both hands. It's the easiest trade of the cycle. Now this one was this became actually the bottom call of the cycle in the previous cycle, like in 2019, 2020. There were death of ETH parties going on. People were saying that ETH is dead, and they were celebrating at the Bitcoin maxis, and then the ratio basically that ticked the bottom, and then it went on a mad tear. It went up like 5x or 6x basically from there to the highs, which is pretty amazing. So I think that ETH is getting ready for that now. And here Fred Krueger, who's a Bitcoiner, he says that ETH BTC is on the edge of total collapse. So he's been making comments like this for a while, but this is just adding to that sentiment, and this is what I want to see. I want to see some more Bitcoiners doing victory parades, and then we can go all in on ETH. And of course, if you are more risk tolerant, then further down the cycle with alts if you choose. But history tends to show that ETH will outperform BTC, and then alts will outperform ETH. Now, I'm not saying go buy alt layer ones or anything like that. Like, I wouldn't touch those, with a 100-yard stick. But I'm talking about like ETH ecosystem tokens. Of course, you guys know that I own RPL, but there's other purchases in that sphere that I think could end up being really good from here as well. Okay, let's talk about some actual real Ethereum news now. And this is some news that I covered on Friday's episode, but we've got some more details here. So Christine Kim is talking about the Pectra hard fork, and she was talking on Friday. I talked about how she mentioned in the All Core Devs call that the devs are talking about potentially splitting Pectra into two forks, Pectra 1 and Pectra 2. And she says the scope of the Pectra upgrade could change drastically if devs decide to split it across two hard forks. And she says here's what they've been thinking to split it right now, as discussed on All Core Devs call number 196. So she says here's a full summary of the call. But she said Pectra 1 would have execution layer changes, including 253. Actually, let me just tell you which one's there. So 2537, and this was some like signature stuff, and 2935, and 2685, and 7702. And then on the consensus side, we have, let me see, we have, 6110, 7002, which is important for staking. Of course, this is execution layer triggerable exits. So it'll give organizations like Rocket Pool, Lido, and others a lot more power over their node operators. And then we have 7251, which is max EB, and 7549. So these are the ones that would go into Pectra 1. And then Christine says that Pectra 2 would be EOF and PIADAS. And she says the above is how developers are thinking about splitting the current list of 20 EIPs in Pectra across two upgrades. But aside from the 20, there are a bunch of new code changes that developers could decide to include in Pectra 2. And then these are, so then there's another list of EIPs here: 7212, 7623, 7688, 7691, 7742, and 7762. So if you are interested in reading more about this, you can read Christine's post, and she says that if developers ship Pectra 1 in early 2025 and Pectra 2 in late 2025, I think it's likely that discussions around EIPs that were initially rejected for Pectra could be brought up again for inclusion in Pectra 2. And she said this would be scope creep, which developers earnestly say they are trying to avoid. But let's be real, based on how Pectra's discussions have gone and are going, it's not out of the question that they'll rediscuss some of those EIPs down the road after Pectra 1. And then this is another list of EIPs that you can have a look at as well. And she said that the final decision will be made on next Thursday's All Core Devs call. And I think the chances of splitting are high due to the complexity of the current Pectra fork and the desire to add more to the upgrade. So, definitely keep an eye on that. I think that's going to be quite big news. But yeah, Pectra 1 will then come in Q1 of 2025, which is a little bit sooner than I expected, with Pectra 2 at the end of 2025, which of course is later than I expected. My target for Pectra was around Q2 of 2025, maybe around April or May. But with this, it looks like it might be 2025 might be the year of Pectra with two Pectra upgrades. I'm sure the second one will be renamed. Okay, and talking about hard forks, things that are coming up in the hard forks, Vitalik here was at the Home Staking Summit, which is taking place currently in Singapore around Token 49. It's a side event, and in that he said that the Verkle tree path might be changing. With Snarks making such a big improvement recently, it could be possible that the Verkle system might be removed from the roadmap and replaced instead with Snarks, because that will be pushing forward forward the timeline for snarks, but it might be delaying Verkle a little bit. But then Verkle, Vitalik makes the argument that it could be obsoleted in 5 years, depending on quantum computing developments that are happening elsewhere. So instead of doing the work twice, first Verkle and then snarkifying everything, he says we could just snarkify it to begin with. And that was actually a really interesting argument that he makes. And then he also wants to say that solo stakers are the key to Ethereum's long-term security. So watch this video, but definitely listen to his keynote from the panel. And of course, Vitalik always has some interesting insights to share with everyone. Okay, and then here Ryan Berkmans again says that about the Pectra. He says ETH core devs are considering shipping a blob count increase in the same hard fork as the new PDAS system that unlocks being able to increase the blob count in the first place without exceeding home staking limits. This is what layer 2s want. He says, I love this fork design. So other people will give you more information as well, but that's some info for you all on that. Okay, next I want to talk about Ethereum and like the apps that are built on top of Ethereum. So here Michael has an interesting perspective. He says the most important metrics for an L1 that nobody ever talks about is the number of successful apps built on top of that layer 1, i.e. the GDP of the ecosystem. So yeah, he goes on to say that Ethereum is still the king on this one. He says here's the breakdown across the landscape, the top 20 projects by 365-day fees. And he says with Ethereum, there's 11 projects. With Solana, there's 3 projects, and that's including USDC. With BNB, there's 3 projects. With Tron, there's 2 projects, and that's including Tether. And with Bitcoin, there's just Bitcoin. And he says missing from the list are things like Avalanche. This is the entire Avalanche community did less fees over the last year than Compound on Ethereum. And what you can see here then is that Ethereum is by far number 1, and it's got the biggest amount of fees going on with these projects that are building on top of it. And that is, I think, a real sign of Ethereum's strength. And once you start factoring in layer 2s onto this, and then also potential bull market coming for Ethereum with people wanting to use it even though there'll be higher fees, I think the future is really bright for Ethereum here. Now, today there was a Bankless episode that came out, and the Bankless guest this time was Robbie Mitchnick, and Robbie is the head of digital assets at Blackrock. And Robbie actually had a really interesting perspective here. He was talking about how Blackrock is growing into crypto and how they're growing into crypto in a really interesting way. So they're giving some TradFi wrappers for people who are more crypto native, but they're also giving crypto wrappers for people who are more TradFi native. And the example he gives, of course, is the ETF, which is a vehicle for crypto native people to get access to crypto in their retirement funds or other TradFi allocations. But then he talks about the Biddle fund from BlackRock and how that is getting people who not traditionally on chain, who wanted treasuries, etc., and now they can move on to on chain now, instead of just being in TradFi. There's actually one really interesting part that I wanted you all to listen to, and this is something that I can do now with my new audio setup. So let's have a listen to here for a few seconds and see what Robbie has to say.
Now, why do we think tokenization is valuable? The properties that you can build into a system that is tokenized versus our legacy system are immense, right? When you think about liquidity, real-time, instantaneous, riskless settlement, 24/7 trading, the fact that these assets become digitally native, transparent, interoperable, that we can remove a lot of the layers of intermediaries that have had to exist in the current system, right? All these things create massive opportunities for efficiency, for financial inclusion, for access to a wider array of investments in a more efficient way. So that's what gets us excited.
Yeah, so that was Robbie from BlackRock, Robbie Mitchnick, talking about why BlackRock want to basically build in crypto and bring all these funds into crypto. And Ryan and I think Ryan and David did a really great job of asking him really good questions, and this made me so incredibly bullish for Ethereum, because we know, right, like they have the ETFs and that's fine, but the actual stuff they're doing with crypto is happening on Ethereum. Biddle fund, of course, is on Ethereum. There's a speculation that BlackRock will be making their own layer two to bring these tokenized assets online. And if they do that, there's going to be a whole lot of their assets that will be brought online that are currently in TradFi rails. And at the end, Robbie was asked, what do you think the future will look like, right? Like with BlackRock and its tokenization, and he says, in like 5 or 10 years' time, we'll either have no assets online, or the majority of BlackRock is going to be on chain, because there's not really any world in which it only makes sense to have some on chain and not others on chain. It's going to be an all or nothing, basically. Like, he wasn't saying in those clear language that clearly, but that's what it was pretty much coming across as. And what he was saying was that he thinks, of course, it's going to be that a whole lot of BlackRock is going to come on chain, and of course, with the way that they built their relationship so far, it looks like that will be on Ethereum. Now, that's just BlackRock. Now, imagine what happens when other asset managers, when other media conglomerates, all of these other big giant businesses, they all bring all their activity on chain as well. This is the future that I want for Ethereum, and this is the future that I envisage for Ethereum, where anyone, anywhere can permissionlessly build on top of Ethereum, and whether that's BlackRock, whether that's other services, it's pretty amazing to see. Okay, I'm going to finish today's episode with some other news. So here, there's some rumblings coming out of the US where, the Fed are going to be making their announcement on the Fed interest rates on Wednesday, on the 18th. And there's rumblings starting to come out of the political sphere that this cut should be a bigger cut than previously expected. And here, there's a letter written by Elizabeth Warren that has gone to the Fed chair, saying that we write today to urge the Federal Reserve to cut the federal funds rate, currently at a 2-decade high of 5.3%, by 75 basis points. So this is unbelievable, that this is even being talked about or considered. I don't think it's very likely at this moment in time for the cut to be 75 basis points, but this is where the discussion's happening now. Elizabeth Warren, of course, is starting to see jobs data and seeing that inflation numbers look fine. Job data is a bit worrying, and she wants a cut to happen to basically bolster the American economy and prevent people from losing jobs potentially. However, 75 basis cut point would be quite drastic, and that might actually spook the markets more. It seems like the more realistic number here is, according to Radar, saying that Fed cuts rate by 0.5% or 50 basis points, and the Fed Watch tool that people use to see what the markets are thinking, the futures are thinking about this decision. It looks like it's around a 60-40 split right now between 60% favoring 0.5% cut, with 40% people favoring a 1/4% cut. Now, that number has changed quite a lot. In fact, just a week ago, it was 70-30 the other way around. And a month ago, it was 25-75. For the 50%, it was 25% chance, and the 2.25% was a 75% chance. So in the recent days, these numbers have changed quite a lot, and it looks like we're going to get that 0.5% cut. But I think the markets should respond positively to this news, and this is one of the things that I think might mark the bottom of the crypto cycle for ETH BTC and the alts. But it's not guaranteed, of course, and we might have to wait a few more weeks or maybe a couple more months to see those bottoms. But I'm hoping that we get those capitulation wicks and just get this behind us, and then we can start building on up to next year. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. I hope you all had a good weekend. Please do leave me feedback on what you think of the audio quality, and if you think that it's too quiet or too loud or anything like that, and then I can make adjustments for tomorrow's episode. But I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.